Hey, welcome everybody. How's it going? Um, I guess I guess everyone should sort of stay on mute until they want to say something. I'm really not used to teaching as a lecturer. For those of you who know me, know that I like a lot of questions and interaction. So I guess what we should do is, uh, if you have a question, um, there's a chat feature. It's a little bit tricky keeping everything open at once because I want to see faces and I have the PowerPoint up, obviously, but I'll leave the chat open. So I guess to keep the side noise minimum, if you have a question, put it up in the chat. If you and hopefully I'll see it. But I think you should be able to unmute yourself, right? And then you could always just pipe in and ask a question by unmuting. Does that work? Do I know how to do that? Okay, well, I say it's a little bit of a learning process for everyone, but let's get started. Okay, so welcome to Makom Israel's first Zoom group class. It's not school directed, obviously. We've been teaching individual schools, but this is our first class that we're just sending out there to all students, all alumni, anyone who's interested, really, and anyone can join in. So we hope this is successful and is something to, at least to a certain degree, add some normalcy to your life where we explore interesting topics and have discussions about them and not be focused on all the chaos going around it. So this one does sort of tangentially relate to the fact that we're living in a time of chaos, but hopefully future ones will be a little bit less apocalyptic. I don't know what the right word is exactly, but hopefully not. Hopefully, obviously, we all know I don't have to do all the platitudes. We all know we're going to get through this, but it's a difficult time. So we wanted to offer a weekly series of classes, lectures, discussions, so that people could sort of get outside, at least intellectually, mentally, emotionally, if not physically. All right. So let's get started. Our topic for tonight is the Jewish question. The Jewish question is a term that was very well known until recently. Until World War II, it was openly discussed. And to a certain extent, it's fallen out of use. People have forgotten about it. In fact, most people are familiar with the term the final solution that the Nazis used. The final solution as a term meant the full sentence in German was the final solution to the Jewish question. So I think that let's take first a look at what's going on around us today. And I think that this is a piece of history that is very relevant. I don't think that's something that should cause us fear, but we should be aware. I think this is one of those times that history enlightens what's going on now. Just a few examples. I don't know how many of you use Twitter. Am I like the only guy on earth who I know who uses Twitter? Probably. I don't know. Anyway, if you follow Twitter, I see some nodding a little bit, I think. I can't see all the faces. It's a little bit difficult. If Not Now, which is the organization of Jews complaining about Israel, is here being called out by a Queen's mom. I don't know who that is on Twitter, but basically saying, why are you complaining that there are coronavirus anti-Semitic theories going around on the internet? If Not Now is complaining about that. And Queen's mom tweeted, well, we've tried to explain to you that anti-Zionism is a form of anti-Semitism, and you guys just don't get it. So that led me to take a look at what exactly was If Not Now complaining about. They're not kidding. There actually are, and there's a few different ones. You can find the article if you look it up. There are a few of these conspiracy theories floating around that somehow the Jews started it. It's not only the Jews. You've heard these conspiracy theories, I will bet. Am I right? Have you heard that this is some lab in China that got, all these weird, I mean, I do think there's something in human nature that tends towards conspiracy theories, but it is weird. I get why there's a evil, wrong-headed Chinese conspiracy theory that's racist and bad, but why did it jump to the Jews? That's weird. Here you have, in New York, a Haredi who was refused service because his people are spreading the virus. This one's a little bit more complicated because I don't know that it's exactly a conspiracy. It's, I think at its face, pretty anti-Semitic, but in the media, you're seeing images of all these Haredi gatherings. So I'd like to give the storekeeper the benefit of the doubt, but it's tricky. This is I don't know what you call it, an ad, an infographic from a political action group, which is trying to get immigrants who are in detainment released. And this is the way they package their message. Anne Frank didn't die in a gas chamber. She died in an infectious disease in a crowded detention facility. Now that's a weird use of the Anne Frank story. I don't think this is intentionally anti-Semitic. I think this is a political action group that's worried about these immigrants and said, oh, here's something we can pull on. But again, and this really goes to the issue of the Jewish question, it's not anti-Semitism per se. Anti-Semitism is a particular phenomenon, and we'll talk about what the difference is. This is an example, I think, not of anti-Semitism, but of how the Jewish question keeps coming up in our lives during this strange time. And this one, I don't even know what this one was. Oxfam, which is an international organization that feeds the hungry, in their bookstore was selling Protocols of the Elders of Zion. I don't know what that is. Now, Oxfam has nothing to do with Jews, but they apologized for offering in their bookstore this internationally recognized fake book, which describes the Jews meeting to destroy human civilization. I can't even wrap my head around it. I doubt that the people who work at Oxfam were anti-Semite. Was somebody in Oxfam an anti-Semite? It's a strange time. Sometimes things pop up a lot in the news, and we notice it a lot in the news, and we say, oh, I don't know if there really is a bump up or the news is just reporting on it now. So is it true that there's really much more anti-Semitism now? Or is it just that we're noticing it because of the media? It turns out that we're not just noticing it, that people who measure these things are seeing an increase. And it's something that international experts are somewhat worrying about. And here's the thing. It's not just a question of a rise in anti-Semitism, which is measurable and identifiable. It's the fact that around the world, people are talking about the Jews as relevant to things that I don't really get why they're relevant. The Jews keep coming up as weird side conversations in a way that they sort of haven't. So let's get to a definition now. That's just sort of, I just wanted to give you a picture that things are floating around in the world. So let's get to the Jewish question itself. I think this is a pretty good working definition for us. Again, the Jewish question is not anti-Semitism. A neutral expression for the negative attitude towards the apparent and persistent singularity of the Jews as a people against the background of the rising political nationalisms and new nation states. This is a relatively new phenomenon. It isn't anti-Semitism itself. As we'll see, it's a question that is asked and discussed by anti-Semites, Jews, and philo-Semites. It's the question of the Jews don't exactly fit in. Why? What should we do about it? The Jewish question asks about anti-Semitism. It is sometimes asked by anti-Semites, but it's also asked by people who are asking, well, why do the Jews get treated so differently? If they're one of us, why are they different? And what does that mean and how do we deal with it? So it's It's a broad category that often gets summed up by this term, or it used to be. Post World War II, we really stopped discussing the Jewish question in polite society, and I think that's understandable. The Holocaust, since the Nazis presented the Shoah as an answer to the Jewish question, the Jewish question itself became taboo for really decades after that. And although anti-Semitism always existed, it was also a taboo in polite society. Today, these questions are more openly discussed. You know, for instance, in the United States, there's talk about, well, can I be, how do we condemn an anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic statement of a congressperson? Or in France, they're arguing about who can participate in which rally. Or in the States also, is anti-Zionism anti-Semitism? These sort of questions are coming up now. So it's worth us taking a look. These are the kind of questions that come up. Now, the answers to them are not necessarily anti-Semitic. Again, I keep repeating this because I don't want it to be confused. You can answer this as a friend of the Jews. You could answer this as a Jew. You can answer the question as an anti-Semite. But the questions that are being discussed are, and you will hear people present things different way. Are people discussing the Jews as a nation or a religion? If Jews of a country, like let's say the USA or the UK, I mean, look at the last election in the UK, how the Jewish question permeated the entire election. Should Jews also be loyal to Israel? Is Prime Minister Netanyahu the Prime Minister of the Jews of the UK, of the United States? How do we do that? If they do support Israel, isn't that dual loyalty? And isn't dual loyalty bad? Is anti-Zionism, if I don't believe there should be a state of Israel, is that anti-Semitism if I think it's okay to be Jewish in other countries, just that they shouldn't have a state? Who gets to answer these questions? Is it only the non-Jews who are talking about Jews, or do Jews get to answer it themselves? Do Jews have white privilege? Are Jews whites? Or, as we saw in Charlottesville, are Jews non-whites who are replacing whites? And going back to the previous question, does it matter how Jews see themselves? In other words, these are the types of things being discussed in a way that I really don't think have been discussed over the last few years. For some reason, it's coming back into the zeitgeist, and it's worth taking a look at where this question came from. Now, the on one foot simple explanation is, we understand that as Europe went from the medieval culture, the Middle Ages culture, to the modern culture, that shift was from being a feudal system of kings who ruled in a certain degree, led by religious leaders, to, in modern times, the modern democratic nation state that defines the West. And already, as that was forming, the question of the Jews became central to that process. In other words, let's take France. Okay, France will no longer be a king who follows the Pope. So if so, then what are the Jews? In other words, this was Christendom, when Europe was Christendom. So the Jews were other, and they lived on the fringes in their ghettos, and we understood our place. Here, as we form modern societies, what will the role of the Jews be? The Jewish question began to be asked as a forward question. What will and what should the role of the Jews be? If religion is no longer a factor, what are the Jews? Are they the Jews in France? Are they as French as everybody else? And so here you see in this picture, it's an artist's rendition of Napoleon lifting the Jews. They felt great gratitude towards these Western countries. Napoleon asked the rabbis of France, what are you guys? Are you a nation or are you a religion? If you're a nation, an independent nation, then I can't really make you French citizens. And the rabbis in France essentially answered, well, no, we're French citizens, but we are French in our nationality and our citizenship. The religion we follow, the laws of Moses that we follow, don't make us any different than any other French person. If there was a war, we would fight for France. And if there were Jews fighting for, let's say, Germany, then we would kill those Jews, which to our ears seems harsh and weird. But the rabbis of France were in a situation where they could be normalized in society, and they grabbed that opportunity. And so Jewish national identity, entering into the modern era of modern nation states, presented the Jews as citizens of the countries where they dwell, as members of that nation that practice a different religion. And religion doesn't matter in modern society. There's freedom of religion, whatever you want. That was the answer officially, and it didn't really work. It didn't really work on either end, by the way. It's not just that many people in France and Germany and England didn't saw the Jews as other. I don't know if you noticed, I don't know how many people follow Twitter, but President Trump this week, and I don't want to get into political discourse, it's not appropriate, but President Trump said, I think appropriately, that there's been a rise of violence against Asian Americans. And President Trump tweeted that that's unacceptable. And then the language he used was, they are trying to help us defeat the coronavirus. There isn't traditionally an Asian question, but that's an example of somebody using, when referring to Jews, the Jewish question. The terms they are helping us. It's not that Asian Americans aren't, they're on our side. What do you mean they and our? That language itself indicates something different, there's some distinction. And the Jews faced that in Europe throughout the 19th century. There were Philo-Semites who liked Jews and said, no, they're really one of us. There were anti-Semites who said they never will be one of us. And Jews were caught in this. There's an urban legend that came out of the Crimean War and World War I. It has different versions, but I'll tell you this version of a British soldier who's Jewish, jumps into the German trench in World War I, sees a German soldier, spins around, bayonets him, and as the German soldier dies, he says, Shema Yisrael. And the British soldier realizes he's killed a Jew and goes crazy. That urban legend sprung up because Jews themselves felt other in a way. And I think this is something that we can relate to. We feel both like we are part of the society, but also distinct, and we define these things differently. We each answer the Jewish question differently. And what's fateful is not how the Jews themselves answer it, and Jews have different answers to the question, how they resolve the tension of I belong, but I'm distinct. The real problems historically were when anti-Semites answered the questions destructively towards the Jews. The real source, the actual original book, the Judenfrage, the Jewish question, was this guy, Eugene Düring, who felt that Karl Marx was ruining socialism by changing its character. And he proposed this idea, one of the earliest proposers of the idea in modernity, that there's something distinctly different about the Jews. It's not the religion that's the problem. It's Jews. There's something inherently different about Jews. And what he really brought into being is this shift from, in the Middle Ages, Jews being hated and maltreated because of religious anti-Semitism, because they rejected and or killed Jesus. They are a danger to society that we will live with. We certainly won't exterminate them. In fact, they're here to bear witness to what happens when you reject Christianity. Obviously, this doesn't represent modern Christianity today, but in the Middle Ages, that was the position. In the 19th century, the Jewish question begins to turn what anti-Semitism is from, we don't like them because of their religion, to we don't like them because of who they are. It's religious to racial. And the obvious danger of racial anti-Semitism is that while in religious anti-Semitism, Jews sometimes actually chose conversion to escape persecution, in racial anti-Semitism, there's no escape. And in religious persecution, there was no demand for or need for a genocidal outlook. In racial, it eventually in Europe evolved into into extermination. Now, again, this anti-Semitism is an approach to answering the Jewish question. It isn't the Jewish question, but when the Jewish question is discussed, these are the types of answers that are given. And the Nazi answer was the Endlösung der Judenfrage, the final solution to the Jewish question. That's how they resolved the Jewish question. And there are other middle ground ways to answer the question. Because we are Makom Israel and we are an Israel organization, the answer that I think is relevant when you're talking about modern Israel is the Zionist answer. It is a weird historical oddity that Zionism and anti-Semitism come together like at two opposite ends. They sort of yoke back together and agree. If anti-Semites in Europe wanted Jews out of their country, so did Zionists. And Zionist, part of the tension of Zionism is, and you hear this discussion, how much of Israel exists because of the Holocaust, how much of Zionism was because of anti-Semitism. And it's an uncomfortable feeling because you want to believe that the desire to create a state of Israel was positive. And the truth is it was a positive answer to the Jewish question. Herzl wrote that he read Düring's book. He read that book, The Jewish Question, and he referred to that term. And he didn't know how to answer it for most of his life. He considered, you can see here, I think, you guys can see my cursor here, a little arrow guy? So he played with the idea that mass conversion might be the best response. In other words, one way to solve the Jewish question would be assimilation. He thought of that idea, but decided it was wrong. And then he turned to he discovered this idea that others had been discussing also before him. He turned to books by, for instance, Moses Hess, who worked with Marx and Engels and broke away from them. He originally was in that group that was universalistic, and he was drawn to the moral approach of improving the world as a world, a globalist. And he broke away from them, and their friendship ended when he became a particularist. In other words, he argued that the way we should make the world better is nation by nation, group by group, to lead to a better world. He didn't stop being a universalist, but he thought that the route to universalism was through each particular nation had to fix itself. And he said, realistically, and the language I think says it more clearly than I've been rambling, the German hates the Jewish religion less than the race. He objects less to the Jews' particular beliefs than to their peculiar noses. Neither reform nor conversion nor emancipation throw open to the Jew the gates of social life, hence their anxiety to deny their racial descent. As long as we are a distinct people in any way, he said, we're going to be a problem. And he said this comes from tradition, this idea that the Jews are a people. As a separate people, if you try to switch your peoplehood to German or French, that won't work. We have to understand the traditional idea that we are our own people. Also, before Herzl, you have Pinsker. The age-old problem, long called the Jewish question, yet again provokes discussion. Again, this is the middle of the 19th century, and he also articulates it fairly clearly. This is the kernel of the problem as we see it. The Jews comprise a distinctive element among the nations under which they dwell, and as such can neither assimilate nor be readily digested by any nation. In other words, what Hess and Pinsker came to the conclusion was any answer that tries to blend the Jews in will fail. Not for every Jew, but for the mass of Jews. This is what led Hess and Pinsker to the Zionist idea, and following them, Herzl embraced it. Pinsker wrote that the fact that the Jews don't feel a lack of national existence is a national problem. And Herzl is going to write in Der Judenstaat, people discuss the Jewish question from a religious perspective, from a legal perspective, from a cultural perspective, and you really have to discuss it from the national perspective. Pinsker described the Jewish people in the Western world as a ghost nation. Whether you're aware of yourself as a nation or not, that's what we are. And we are perceived as such, as a separate nation. And so if you have, a nation is, Italians are a people, a land, and a culture. If you take the people out of the land, the nation dies, except for the Jews who wander around. And Pinsker really felt that this was the source of anti-Semitism. He felt that the Jewish question itself, the fact that Jews seem different, is why we are treated badly. That's the source for anti-Semitism. It's a powerful image, I think. And so that's why he, among others, felt that the solution had to be Zionism itself, had to be a solution to the Jewish question. Now, you will notice in a sort of, again, this is the weird irony, that the solution of the Jewish question that Herzl proposed, you will notice that the language is quite similar to pretty uncomfortable language of a final solution to the Jewish question. But that doesn't mean Herzl was an anti-Semite, obviously. It means that they were addressing the same problem and came to really, really different conclusions. Let's leave it at that. Now, we also know that these are the two sort of extreme solutions. Either on one side, evil elimination of the Jews, on the other side, the separation of the Jews to their own nation state so they don't have to live blended in, and then they could deal with the world from a national stage. Of course, there are other models. There's a whole spectrum of other models of Jews placed within the diaspora countries of the West, and Jews occupy every possible answer in that position, and non-Jews also use just about any possible answer to the question. What's different really today is that in this time, when they were discussing the solution as creating a Jewish state, today we have a Jewish state. And so the question has different ramifications. As we discussed earlier, the Jewish state itself becomes part of the Jewish question. Well, if you live in America, why are you worried about it? Why do you have a lobbying group about Israel? Why do you have dual loyalty? So that the Jewish question takes different forms than traditionally, but ultimately it's that same wrestling that Jews and non-Jews have, coming to different answers. What is our place in the Western world? Some arguing it's a very natural place. Jews should be as welcome and as integrated as anybody else. Some saying, I don't think they should be, and I don't think they can be, and I don't think they will be. To me, sort of the sad irony of the fact that we're seeing this really is the fact that I think anybody who reasonably looks at what's going on in the world today, more or less has to come to the conclusion that we are a deeply interconnected world. That this is not, when people wrestle with us versus them questions, they're missing the point. There is no them. There's only us. There's only us. There are groups within us, but we are us. We are all together in everything. And what we're going to watch today is, as the whole world deals with really the same problem, we're going to watch different nation states respond differently. And I think if you look at the course of history, I think that the taboo of the Holocaust has made people discuss the Jews' place again in ways that are ultimately, I think, positive, but in the short term make us uncomfortable. It's not something that we should be afraid of. We should participate in answering these questions. It's not something that should daunt us. We should express our voice in how we answer the questions. And we, even the 25 of us in this room, virtual room, may answer the question differently. Great. These are conversations we can have among the 25 of us, among the 14 million of us as Jews, and among the 7 whatever billion of us as humans. Who are the Jews and what are their place? Who are groups? What is national identity? Who are Italians? And what are that role does that play in the world? A lot of the tension in arguments today is between a sort of globalist response that the human race has to, there's no difference, or saying, no, each nation, each people are different and are part of a global community. Or do we say we don't want to be part of a global community? We want to build walls that separate us from the rest of the world. These are the tensions that are rising in the 21st century. And I'm not one of those people who says, oh, well, it's, coronavirus really is a positive. But we came out of the Black Death, the bubonic plague, with the Renaissance, where people moved forward in the world. And I hope that what we will end up with is a growing sense of our interconnectedness and how we belong together. And the question shouldn't be, how do we live with each other? I think the question we need to, as civilization, focus on more is, what can we do for each other? How do we help each other? How do we take care of each other? I am one of those people who chooses to be optimistic. And I do think that that's where we're headed as a civilization. And so I'm not advocating that we don't discuss or answer the Jewish question. I'm advocating that we do discuss and answer the Jewish question. And that Jewish question is, what role do we play in the countries we live? What role do we play in the world? How do we play the most productive roles we can in the societies and civilizations where we live? The fact that some people answer it with anti-Semitism is what we have to speak out against. But I really do think that every step is a step forward. I'm just putting this up as sort of a little bit of keeping you aware, for those of you who've never been to the website, for those of you who haven't signed up for the WhatsApp weekly update, for those of you who may not know about our weekly podcast available everywhere. These are resources. And as I say, we're going to try to keep at least close to weekly classes given by different teachers at Makom. I see some of them in there. I see Matthew, I see Benji, I think, in there. And now I realize this is a sort of awkward, most of us, I don't think, know each other super well, but I think we're getting used to these types of online forums. So it was very, if anyone has questions or comments that they want to make, now's a great time. If you can't, can you unmute yourself? Matt, can you unmute yourself as an experiment? Okay, great. Oh, I didn't hear you though.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, there you are. Okay, that's my colleague Matt, who is the genius behind the WhatsApp weekly update, creating it and runs it every week. Does anyone have any questions or comments in this strange situation? And would somebody willing to be the first one to break the virtual ice? Geula unmuted. She's thinking about it. Do you hear? I don't hear.
I have a question.
Oh, there you go.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Ariella Snyder, for anyone that doesn't know me. Most of you don't. So you said before that the source of like anti-Semitism is that because like Jews are like a ghost nation, and like we might not see ourselves as different in the societies we're in, but like the other people in society around us.
That was Pinsker's, yeah, Pinsker's analysis. You don't have to agree. I was just showing that as
yeah,
as sort of at the roots of Zionism is that idea. Yeah.
So then how does that fit in with like regards to comparing anti-Semitism to anti-Zionism? Because like now we do have like this like option as being in like our own like land as like a full like nation to like with our own nation. So how does that fit in with anti-Zionism and
I don't know. That's a great question. I don't know. I would think that the answer is this, that what Pinsker is suggesting is the strangeness of our nation makes us stand out. And at the moment, more than half of Jews don't live in Israel. So the Jews, the 14 million of us, because we're taking different answers, some who want to, the majority want to live in the diaspora, the minority, a large minority, it's like 43, 44%, live here in Israel. So some Jews are saying, well, we need our own state and we're going to defend it and we're going to stick out as our own state. And many are saying, well, we want to run for president of the United States also. And so the tension still exists. Again, you can answer it in really evil ways that some people are, and that's obviously wrong. But there's a not evil aspect to it, which is what the Zionists are wrestling with. It is, we think that things will be better when we are like, I assume, I don't know, I've never looked at statistics. I assume that, I don't know why I keep picking on Italy as my example country. Maybe because they're on my mind because of the virus. Maybe I should pick on somebody else. Canada, I don't know. I assume most Canadians live in Canada or Canada. I don't know why you would call it Canada, but that's what Canadian makes me think of. So I assume that most Canadians live in Canada, right? Most, I don't know. Most French people live in France. Most Jews don't live in Israel. In fact, we have a weird thing, which is we have a country called Israel and we have people called Jews.
Right.
So there are all sorts of things about us that we haven't really integrated in the way that Pinsker wanted yet. What direction that will go in the future, I don't know. Zionism is the claim that ultimately will normalize like everybody else. And then these problems will subside. That's Zionism's mission statement, belief, dream. Not all Jews are Zionists and not all Jews believe in that mission and dream. There are many other answers. But that's, I think I've answered have I answered your question? I think so.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, now here's a written thing from Geula because there's something wrong with her microphone. I heard you say something before about how Chinese are getting a lot of hate now because of the coronavirus. There's been an uptick in anti-Asian violence, at least in the States. I think that now the same thing is happening with the Jews. Whether or not Jews are spreading the virus, we are getting a lot of hate. Do you think this is legitimate, as in we aren't being careful enough, we're gathering too much? Or is the hate of just plain anti-Semitism? Well, look, that's an interesting question. I think that the fallacy of racism is group identity. In other words, if there is, let's say, a higher crime rate in a minority community, let's say the African American community. So if I say black people are X, that's racist, because if some people are doing something, I cannot identify that group as that. You know, if somebody says, well, look at the Jews control Hollywood, Eisenberg, Metro Goldwyn Mayer, it's all Jews. Okay, it's not all Jews, right? None of us, we all joke. You're like, oh, I wasn't invited to that board meeting. If some Jews do something, it's not the Jews. As soon as I say the Jews, I'm crossing the line to the racial fallacy, which is a form of evil, where I treat a whole group based on the actions of some of them. So the Jewish community, certainly to a certain extent, the ultra-Orthodox community, New Rochelle is a viral ground zero because of the interconnectedness of Jews. But if a person is seeing the Jews as a focus or seeing Asians as a focus, that's a racial wrong, because it's people. And again, I hope that more and more of humanity wakes up to this historical event of this pandemic and says, oh my gosh, we're all people. It's a very ancient Jewish idea that because the Torah starts with the story of Adam, the Talmud says. Why does the story start with the story of Adam and Eve? Because every individual is an entire world. Every individual is created in the image of God. It's a classic Jewish idea that every individual is a whole world and is of value. And Cain and Abel, every individual who hurts another individual is hurting their own brother or sister. These are deeply Jewish ideas that I hope this difficult, painful process will lead more and more people to address. So do I think it's legitimate? No. I do think it's bad that some Jews aren't being careful enough and that they're doing it visibly. I do think that's deeply problematic, that there are segments of the community, in different communities, by the way. They had Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and the golf courses are full to overflowing in Florida. That's not all Jews, but the Jews do stand out, and so it will create an anti-Semitic reaction. That you can never blame the victim for the wrongdoing of the evildoer, bad person, racist. I don't know, whatever term is most appropriate. Am I answering your question? I think I am. Okay, good. I'm glad. Thank you. That was very helpful. Yes. Okay. Any other questions? We're running a little bit long, but if there's any other questions, if you unmute or chat, I will answer them. Okay. I'm not seeing any. So thank you very much. If you go to, how do we sign up for the WhatsApp update? Oh, what a great question. Go to, if you see my pointer, oh, hold on. I'll go back to, okay. And here we go. If you go to our website, you will see a WhatsApp news update on our homepage. Under that WhatsApp news update is a link, is a little green line that says click to join the group, and it should bring you in. If not, our website has contact information for each of us as teachers. Please be in touch with us and we'll fix you up. And that's true for anything. If you have questions that you want to discuss, part of what we do is, because most of our day job is teaching students from outside of Israel studying in Israel. Well, now a lot of them aren't in Israel. So anyway, we spend a lot of time discussing things virtually on WhatsApp, on Facebook. You can join our Facebook group if you like. Will this be at the same time every week? That is the plan, says Benji. But feel free to be in touch with questions, comments. Great point, Matt. If you have topics you want us to cover, then bring it up and let us know. We're brainstorming different topics to present over the weeks to come, and we'd love to hear it. And again, feel free to join us on our podcast. And the more feedback we get, the more questions we get, the happier we are. We are all trying to help each other de-stress. And the nicest thing you can do for a teacher is ask them a question. So feel free, and I'm getting some nods. So please, please, as you think about things, as they're of interest, we'd love to hear from you. All right? Well, that was kind of fun. Thank you so much, everybody. Look forward to the next one.
That was fun.
Thank you.
Thank
Oh,
you.
pleasure,
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Oh, so many nice thank yous. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody. That was awesome. I do think also it was on Facebook Live, I think, and we'll also find way to post this. Yeah, we'll share the recording. Awesome. Okay. Thank you. I'm going to end the meeting. I don't want to be like pushy mean guy.
See you all next week.
Yeah, it's so awkward to end these.
Don't do it.
I always feel bad closing it on people. There we go. And